of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero, Chapter 166. Agreements. Watching Shigaraki preen, no matter the circumstances, was something that Yagi Aizawa Toshinori would never be comfortable with. Now then, gentlemen, I make you this once-in-a-lifetime offer in the spirit of generosity, born out of my boy's well-being, despite your best efforts and the ambitious things you're trying to pull together here. Especially after Shouta, during one quiet evening where they'd snuggled up together in bed to watch the news before sleeping, had pointed out that Almighty was pretty fond of preening too. You can either sign yourselves over to me in my care, or you can sit down here in the dark and await the police force. He mused, his grin veritably shit-eating. I'm certain that being thrown into Tartarus quirkless and consigned to 15 minutes worth of socialization under constant suicide watch would be simply marvelous, wouldn't you agree? His gruffy, adorable love was so good at grounding him, wasn't he? What? He really wanted to go to where his partner was. Well, they're your two choices, so what'll it be? To hold him, to feel him in his arms, and know that he was all right. Like we should just trust you, huh? After all of this. Letting out a sigh, Toshinori continued to hold his nephews and looked on. Yeah, boss, what should we do? He didn't like this bantering, of course, but none of this makes sense. Jizaki breathed his own body, having shakily moved to Hari, the ivory-haired youth, having removed his mask, his ashen face wary, whilst he tried to stand at his leader's side. You're being here. You're aiding the heroes at taking Eri. All of my hard work. He seethed, his hive-peppered hands bunching into trembling, useless fists. Are you, oh my toe? Are you just gonna stand by and let him take us to his country filled with the quack, sick, and depraved? Are you... if I may? The business suit wearer cut in, his smirk darkening to the point where the Yakuza Waka flinched and settled down. The number one felt the same moral argument flood his senses. After all of this, after today, this is my offer, and considering all of you degenerates have imposed yourself directly into my business, you can present any questions you may have my way, but I warn you, he wasn't fit to be a pro-hero anymore, was he? He'd become compromised beyond redemption, and as awful as that was, I am not interested in any of your harping on or whining. If you're unwilling to follow my direction, then so be it. However, he could find himself caring less, really. Maybe this was all for the best. Well, if there was a best to be found here, if you choose to stay here, your memories of today will be destroyed, or rather, your memories of today and potentially other days, for, you see, not all quirks are as straightforward to use as the ones I've just taken from you, and, well, practice makes perfect, doesn't it? Perhaps having been used to using others as test subjects, you wouldn't mind submitting your minds to me whilst I try out this newly acquired gift of a follower of mine bestowed on me, right? Blinking, his eyebrows rising alongside the young man, he yelled. Toshinori felt his head snap toward Shigaraki in a jerking movement filled with shock and surprise. For you see, I have what you might call a vested interest in keeping my involvement and the involvement of these dear boys in this matter quiet. He casually shrugged. They're just starting out in new business ventures that my partner and I have invested in. He grinned. That, and I suppose all my toe still has his uses. Well, until he finally finds a successor, at any rate. He furthered with a drawn-out, weary sigh. A hero's work is never done, I suppose. Smiling as Kurogiri returned, serious as happy-yapping, signaling such, the country leader clapped his hands together and smirked. So then, what'll it be? You can't just... Oh, I can, and I am. He chuckled. His body stood before the brunette in a flurry of movement that knocked both him and his clear favorite on their asses. Sama, waka! So that he could look down at them like the scum they were. Did you give any such consideration to someone I view as my son? When you snatched him away from his child, my dear grandson Nato, and their collective friends, watching as the golden irises shrank in shock before they widened in understanding. The other frowned imperiously at him.
My boss, he grunted. He needs to be revived. I've read about you. I've seen those showy interviews you give on television. He furthered, give me my genetic curse back to wake him and...
Ha! You think to barter with me, child? He got in, his laughter more malicious than entertained. You arrogant little shit! You're lucky to be breathing! He snickered. You'll either hand yourself and your latent genius over to me for the betterment of my people and do exactly as I tell you, or you'll rot in Tartarus. He snipped. Just to be clear, I could care less about your Oyachi, you understand? If I wake him, that's what I'll choose to do, when or if I feel like it. He stated, his smile curling cruelly. Because now that you've flagged him up as leverage I can use to ensure your cooperation, well, since you held my boys' community to ransom, you can now consider this a good taste of your own medicine. Can't you? He chuckled. I should imagine you're not liking the bitterness, are you, He continued when the other paled, his anger dying beneath the weight of the situation he landed himself in. You'll never know freedom as you once did, Jachaki. But why let your talents go to waste? Why be separated from your comrades when you can be together? Watching as the other heaved a low, dejected sigh, the rest of his rabble slumping submissively in kind, Shigaraki turned to the incorporeal woman and gave her a nod. At the gesture, one of his finest creations bowed at him, took a step from Sirius, and melted into the warp gate that'd take them home. Home where the good doctor and his most trusted staff would be waiting to greet them. Shouta and the child, of course, had already been seen to, their welfare in the hands of David, Melissa, and the scientist's private staff, who would have ferried them away to one of their manor's master suites. Not that these Yakuza scum would ever see such luxuries, of course. Oh no, Fugaraki had been muttering about wanting a new assistant or two for a while now. These hoity-toity scientists that keep coming here are so full of themselves, Yuta. I need someone to take orders, not tell me that they're too busy with projects of their own. At least let me loan a few promising grad students from the universities of countries who have called you an enemy. You know, like in the good old days. And not that he hadn't been tempted to slip back into his old ways, but times had changed, hadn't they? He was in a long game now, a game that could see him having everything he wanted without having to kill, fearmonger, and destroy things. Well, things other than those stupid enough to cross him, to attempt to harm what was his, to bring discord to his family. Who'd have thought that domesticity could be so fulfilling, pleasing? Okay, now that that's settled, he called whilst the growling, hackles-brickled dogs ushered the men through the portal Kurogiri made. He then turned to offer a jovial wave at the dumbfounded bro-hero and the young men they were both so fond of. I'll leave you here to sort things out with dear dog-san Toshinori-kun. Oh, and boys, you're welcome to come with me now to check on our Shouta, if you'd like. He offered, his grin tilting when the supposed number one bogged at him.
Shigaraki, You've taken him to New Eden,
Oh, don't get your fancy onesie in a bunch. He huffed, his shoulders rolling in an easy shrug, whilst they regarded each other in the near darkness of the debris-scattered battleground. Another of my wonderful creations will be at the Noroneko at, let's say 3 p.m., That'll give you enough time to rally the rest of your little friends, smooth things over with the police force, and get that bedridden old criminal somewhere safe, won't it? He mused. That's not odd, considering it's nearly the weekend and all. The children won't miss too much school time if they take a short break with us all now, will they? Why, yes, I believe a weekend away might be just the thing. He interrupted breezily whilst beckoning Tumbra and Dobby over. I'll also have my physicians check you over, my lads. But we can't just leave Ji-san to explain all of this, the flame wielder huffed. That's not my problem last time I checked, he replied breezily, his anger finally subsiding. So if you're not coming now, I hope to see you later.
Wait!
Feeling his smile brighten in the face of yet another victory over Toshinori, Shigaraki enticed Sirius to his side for a well-deserved headbutt, his smirk shitting.
Boys, if you're comfortable going there now, I'd appreciate you being with Sean, the number one offered. Involving your grandfather was my decision, and now I'll face the consequences.
He smiled.
It's an incredibly small price to pay, considering the outcome, right?
He furthered.
Nodding sagely, he magnanimously stood to the side of Kurogiri's swirling vortex and gestured the way through for them with a regal bow.
Ah! Come along then, won't you? It was good to be the king, wasn't it? You did what? The next hour, he'd admit, was one he could have done without. Holy shit, are you okay? And as he sat with his closest friends and those of their community who'd been directly involved in the hunt for his husband, he was beginning to wish he'd just bitten the bullet and begged Shigenaki to take him along to New Eden with the boys. Why didn't you call us in? Especially since the combined scrutiny of Mirai, Kenji-san, the other pros, and the majority of their study group's mothers was proving a little heavy as he listened to their gripes in a secured room deep within the police force HQ.
What in the world were you thinking?
Sighing the mug of coffee Sorihiko had veritably shoved at him, still warm and mostly full inside the cage of his hands, Toshinori closed his eyes.
He clearly wasn't thinking at all.
I'm sorry.
He breathed quietly, his head bowing as the shout's frantic pacing and whispered conversation filled with disbelief slowed to a halt.
In my desperation, I became weak.
He said, his shoulders slumping further.
I couldn't go another day without finding him.
Cutting off his words, the so-called number one prepared himself for another barrage of questions when... But that's exactly why you be...
Aye! That's enough! Out of you!
Blinking, Toshinori lifted his head to find Inko, Rei, Mitsuki, and Kimiko corralled around him, the fiery blonde mother of Katsuki, having placed a calming hand upon his right shoulder as she stared down the room, filled with weary, emotionally wrought bros, her face angry and determined.
Don't you dare say another damn thing to him about Shigaraki!
She snapped, her teeth gritting audibly in the shocked quiet of the room.
If my husband had been taken, I would have done the same damn thing! She spat. And I dare any one of you to tell me that you wouldn't sell your soul to the devil if it meant saving someone you loved.
She added. Then Inko's trembling hand soothingly stroking across his left to skim across his back in the same gesture she'd no doubt practiced when her own son was distressed. He looked to her, his wrecked heart cracking a little more. He's been so strong for so long, she stated, those beautiful emerald eyes awash with tears. I know that you're all worried and scared by what this means because you know more about that man than we do, but, she managed, he's our friend, your friend, and he needs your support, not your condemnation right now. He said he'll give up his license, for goodness sake, and none of us want that, do we? Struggling not to let his own dam break, it was Rei who spoke on his behalf next, she and Kimiko standing at their other best friend's sides.
Inko-san,
Isn't getting Shouta back the most important thing here? Think back to everything you have done. Isn't getting Shouta back the most important thing here? Think back to everything you have done for me and my family. I cannot and will not leave his side, regardless of any consequences, she stated, her usually serene composure a little fade.
We don't want that either, honestly.
And Shigaraki-san did invite all of us, Kimiko added, her slender arms folding as the four of them stared down the quieter heroes sat around the large rectangular table, her beautiful face tinged with righteous indignation. Are you seriously telling me that between all of you, you wouldn't be able to keep us and the kids safe? That you'd choose to stay in the past, choose to follow the so-called moral standing as set by a bunch of stuffed shirts in the government over the love you have for your friends? She asked.
Shit's so sad, please. That's not it.
You'd want to behave like the people who condemned me to prison because you refuse to see the flip side of the reasons behind Toshinori-san doing what he did.
Flinching a little at her words, Toshinori dared to look at his mentor, Kenji-san, and the other pros directly across from them. They
They didn't seem to be angry anymore, at least.
So, we're just going to bend the law, twist the rules? Sorihiko huffed, his arms folding gruffly. Or perhaps we should cover everything up, then go on a merry holiday to a place we and the rest of the civilized world have officially declared off limits. He pushed,
Swallowing thickly, the number one prepared to answer when, "No." Blinking, it was Kamui Woods who stepped forward, his expression grim even beneath the mask he wore, his bark-riddled hands holding a tablet that Spinner had given him, the faces of Shota's other care center brothers looking out of it in one split panel with a study group crowded around another.
Look, kid.
"No, Sorji, you need to listen," he cut in. "Thinking about this logically, technically no crimes have been committed," he said, Tadoshi's form becoming more prominent in the screen through which he and his friends were joining the meeting, his mouth speaking into a microphone that the rest of them couldn't hear. He was no doubt talking to Naoki directly. Oh, his partner would be so proud to see the young heroes he'd helped to develop, wouldn't he? "The investigation has been put under the special circumstances bracket because Sho is a pro-hero. His identity as a racerhead has had to be protected, and other than Genji-san, no officers or heroes have been officially cited as involved because he's married to Toshi. The Official Secrets Act means that everything about this matter is top secret," he furthered. "Therefore, according to the laws underwritten by the HPSC, the PSC, and the police force, all our commander has to do is write up the events, close the case, and seal it." He added, everyone's attention swiftly moving to the beagle quirked man. "Right, Ji-san?" Letting out a dry chuckle, his hands raised in surrender, the suit wearer grinned dryly.
"I had been trying to say as much myself, you know,"
he offered whilst he, Naomasa, and Sansa held up their own tablets.
"Official secrets, being what they are, all for one's involvement on the disappearance of the Yakuza group is something that'll never see the light of day," he continued. "I just didn't want to follow through on any of the paperwork until after everyone had the opportunity to say their piece,"
he said, his eyes roving around the heroes.
"As pros, you all have the right to make anything that's happened here public, you see," he reminded. "Your jurisdiction as government-licensed representatives, protectors and enforcers of the law, puts your authority over even mine," he added, an uneasy breath or two roiling around the room. "So, it's down to you, really," he offered. "Should anyone not want to be placed under the special circumstances sanctions, then that is your right, and if that applies to you, I'd like for you to raise your hand so I can begin the process of removing it. Then, as Gran Torino-san has said, what has happened will become public knowledge and charges may be brought."
When no one raised their hands, their faces ranging from full-blown relief to weary happiness, Toshinori could only blink.
"But
Now that's...
Nemori voiced, a finger of her paw-shaped glove waving at him, whilst many others nodded around her.
For goodness sake, Senpai,
she balked, her face distressed and exasperated.
We were angry at you for involving All for One. We were scared to death that the bastard helping would ruin you and out you and show to the world as a couple. How the Norinaka would be flooded with nosy busybodies and any enemies you might have looking for payback, she upped. And then what would we all do, huh? We couldn't have you showing Nato moving away for your own safety, could we, huh?
wait, what?
We love you, you idiot.
Mirai sighed, his fingers busily scrubbing at his forehead in an attempt to alleviate the migraine he was definitely battling.
And I might feel a little prickled that you didn't call out or tell us what you were doing, he sighed. God, when Spinner told us that you, Dabi, and Tomra had just gone to regroup at the cafe, we were going out of our minds trying to think about anything else we could do to help you, and then, well,
he furthered, his shoulder sagging.
So let's all agree to go over the specifics later and get everyone quickly and discreetly over to the Noraneko instead.
He nodded, the majority of them whipping out phones to coordinate cars and vehicles.
Kanji-san can officially close the file when we get back to our research and evidence collecting expedition
at a top secret location, right?